Good afternoon. Thank you for checking out our assessment blog. And today we're going to be talking about how you will conduct your assessment. So hopefully before you've looked at our cycle of assessment and understand some of the different components of assessment, maybe you've checked out our how to write a good assessment question. And now you're asking yourself some of the very basic questions of how do I organize this? How do I move forward? So we have a nice little checklist here that we're going to work through in this short little blog post today. So first of all, let's look at what are you already doing in your courses. I don't believe that assessment needs to be an add-on feature to what you're already doing. The chances are that you're already doing some type of assignment-based, rubric-based, embedded test questions, something that's already in your course that you can use for assessment purposes. Next, ask yourself, is this going to be a formative or a summative assessment? What that means is this something that you expect the students to have a low knowledge because you're just introducing the concept to them? Or is this maybe toward the end of the term or maybe a second course they've taken and you expect them to have summative knowledge, much more in-depth knowledge about this topic? Have the students already been exposed to the topic or is it new? Again, that speaks to the summative or formative. Is this the first time they've heard about it or is this the third or fourth time? Are you reinforcing the information? Does the assessment align with multiple outcomes? Is it something that your program needs to know? Is it something that you want your course objectives to address? And also, how does it fit in with the overall outcomes that the college has? I think that it's important that you design an assessment that captures all this data for you so you're not having to do multiples. Will this be a pilot? Pilots are really important. They give you a chance to make sure that the assessment instrument that you're using is actually answering the question you want. Sometimes there is a mismatch. One department here on campus used a rubric to evaluate some writing samples and discovered they were using a rubric that didn't address the real needs of the department. They didn't care as much about grammar as they cared about the student's ability to describe something. Are you going to use it in a single course this first time? Are you going to have multiple sections that you use it in? Are you piloting it within your own? And then once it's perfected and you're happy with the assessment instrument, how about rolling it out to other colleagues in the same sections so you're gathering multiple pieces of information across the sections? This helps with aggregating data to make sure that you're having an impact on the overall curriculum of a program. So let's talk a minute about the assessment instruments themselves. Course embedded assessment. That can be anything from a pre-post example. My science folks like to use pre-post. Pre will tell you how they're doing when they first walk in the classroom. You need to administer this in the first week of classes. The post exam will tell you how much they gained between this. So in the course of the semester, what did they learn? Course embedded assessments also speak to the idea of having in your final exam or your midterm exam or maybe even assignments, quizzes throughout the second half of the semester in which you're gathering very specific data about key concepts that your assessment question is trying to assess. So course embedded is really good. One of my rules of thumb I like to say is don't assess prior to midterm. Unless you're doing a pre-post design, if you assess prior to midterm, a lot of times you're really assessing what they learned before they came to your class. So give them time to really absorb the information. Performance assessment, this could be something along the line of observation. If they're doing, say in the lab, a lab assignment, it could be a speech, it could be a group assignment, a presentation. That's a performance assessment and is usually going to be evaluated through the use of a rubric. Looking at portfolio assessment, this is very popular now, especially in a lot of my career programs here on the campus. Portfolio assessment, it's really important for the faculty to have sat down and given some serious thought to their expectations for what will be in the portfolio and how they're going to evaluate. Not every portfolio will be created equal, so you want to make sure you have, again, a rubric in place that you can look at and evaluate how students are doing and if they've met the needs of the faculty in that portfolio. Finally, standardized and local instruments. A good example for that is our nursing program. They have to do a standardized test instrument in order to begin practicing in their field. And so definitely, if you have to use a standardized instrument, make sure you're getting those results back. Hopefully you're getting sub-scores back as well, so you can narrow in on different sections and how students are doing across the board. And then finally, capstone projects. If you're one of those departments that you have a capstone experience, maybe you're one of the career programs that have a final class that students take, this is a great place to do those summative assessments we talked about, where you're looking at overall student knowledge. Maybe they're pulling together a big project that encompasses all the courses they've taken. Again, a rubric is a great place to use this kind of experience here with the capstone project. So no matter where you are in this process, think through the processes that you need to have in place to make this the best experience for you as a faculty member and also capture the best assessment data that you can for your students. And overall, what you'll get is improved student learning.